Tanzania is wonderful. I've experienced a chance of a lifetime that I never ever thought I could. Everyone welcomes you and treats you like you're at home, treats you like you're their brother, and this place is unbelievable.
TeleDrum grew out of a conversation that I had with Amandina Liamba. Amandina was my department head. I was fortunate enough to get a Fulbright fellowship to teach in the Department of Fine and Performing Arts at the University of Dar es Salaam in 1998, 1999. And Amandina and I were talking, though, it would be a shame to lose that continuity because they may not be able to get an outside teacher, Fulbright or whatever, every year to do that. And the department still needed more help in instruction. They're getting there, but still needed more help with that. Amandina went on to do other things. My colleague there while I was there, Augustin Hattar, became department head. So he and I came together to sort of finalize, design what the program would be. We came up with the idea of an intensive summer program, sort of a summer film academy where the students could get intensive training in filmmaking and create a product, either a work of entertainment or a work for a client. So that was the idea. Let's try to get support for this, and then at least once a year there's an intensive practical experience for the students. Hattar tells the story about their approach being like the traditional medicine man.
We've been making television programs, but like a medicine man, a traditional medicine man. When you go there, maybe you are suffering your back, and he says, try this, then try that, then try that. And at the end, you probably eventually get healed, but you don't know if it's the medicine he gave you or you just become whole. So we were doing films with trial and error, and with Professor Boyd's coming, we started doing it methodically.
He's being very humble. These guys are filmmakers. Hattar's been making films, Richie's been making films. This is not new to them with it. They've written productions. They are on the forefront of social problems in Africa. It's in their tradition, in the African oral tradition, to use the theater arts as a way to educate while entertaining.
You teach by doing, you see. So students learn by doing the actual thing. It's not like the other ways, you just do a lot of, theories, then maybe you go out and do the practicals. Students are eager to act, to go out in the fields and, act. If you just keep them in classes and show them the theories and so on, the bookwork is some kind of boring them, So when we have this workshop, you do it for, say, 1 week classwork, and then you go out and do the work. The students become, active, and they really feel that they are now into business. And actually, you'll find them wanting to prove that they can, and so everyone will try to work to his level best. And so in that way, I think we can, in the future, if this type of programs go on, we'll get good filmmakers. The project had to be beneficial to the society or the community we are living in. So we were to train the students to do filmmaking, but then they should produce something which would be beneficial to the community they're living in.
Fulbright came up with a program, Alumni Initiative Awards, for former Fulbrighters to maintain a relationship with their host institution. I applied. We were fortunate enough to get it. And that's how we created the program. The grant allowed for me, a fellow professor, in this case my good friend Steve Gilliland, who I've been working with my entire filmmaking career since 1979, working and teaching with, and also a student. Again, a part of this is to put students from different cultures together through this program. And our choice was Hugh Canada, which was an easy choice. He's our best production student, works well with students, and the fact that he's African American made it that much more exciting to take someone from the African American community who's hardly really been out of West Virginia to Africa. And then we could bring either a teacher or a student from the University of Dar es Salaam back to do the editing. In this case, the selection was Richard Ndunguru, who was my former student when I taught there, and one of my best students, if not my best student. So Richard came on as the director and traveled back here to the States with us to learn the editing process and actually edit the film. We were fortunate enough during the planning year of this that they did get another Fulbrighter in the department, Kendall Moore, who was a producer with ABC News, and she was teaching the screenwriting class there, and I was able to work with her to incorporate this idea into the curriculum for her spring semester. Again, the idea with TeleDrum was that, okay, we'll create a product and the students will get the experience, but what I wanted was a real client, to create a real product that would be used. Kendall was able to secure a great client for us. It began with Johns Hopkins Communications Program, who were involved in many projects in East Africa. They had partnered with TAC-AIDS, which is Tanzania Commission on AIDS there, and HealthScope Tanzania, which are organizations that are on the forefront of AIDS awareness, particularly for young people. And all of these groups are working with USAID there as well.
Johns Hopkins have a project running in Tanzania called ISHIP project. It's a project which keeps people aware of the AIDS epidemic. And so students were told to write scripts regarding a message which says, you cannot tell by looking. And so there were about 18 scripts which were written by the students. So we decided to come up and choose Delphine's script. The script was chosen because it had a story which in a way cut across all walks of life, all ages. It had the youth and the elder ones. So it was something which a story which cuts across. We finally had a title called Duara, which simply means cycle. The typical translation of it is cycle. The theme is some kind of a vicious cycle, which is the story itself. It will actually remind the people how this epidemic may spread if we are not careful.
Probably the hardest thing in teaching film is teaching structure. Making a film it's like a factory. You've got all these different departments and it moves every day, so it makes it that much harder. And the lower your budget is, the more organized you have to be. Problems occur when people try to learn everything or try to do everything with it. So what we tried to do in this experience is break it down into the procedures, into the different departments. They each work separately but toward the common product together. So Hugh taught and supervised the sound crew. Each particular job, from the mixer, Seema, doing the mixing, to his boom operators, and they would cycle through.
As a student, I did feel a little nervous about being put into the shoes of a teacher, but I supervised the sound crew that was very inspirational and very enthused about learning, and that just made my job a lot easier. And for them to comprehend and go out and perform so well, it really made me feel proud. But the funny thing about it is I probably learned more from them than they learned from me.
Steve taught and supervised the photography unit, which included lighting, included the entire camera crew, grips and gaffers. And Steve also supervised the art crew. Steve has served as production designer on the 3 feature films that I've made.
With the camera crew, it was evident early on that they had an eye for composition, It was simply a matter of getting them familiar with the equipment and kind of reinforcing some of the basics. Lighting, the sun is just blasting all the time, and we had to try to find what little shade we could to keep from getting these really harsh images. And the students worked very hard with very limited lighting gear. We were able to come up with some pretty sweet looking images. The art department, as far as supervising, once the shooting started, there was virtually no supervision required. They were able to go out and find their props and their costumes and sets, and they had planned several scenes ahead, and so they were always well ahead of the game and came up with some terrific looking sets.
I supervised the producers and directors unit, which included the writers. We began with Delphine's first draft. I worked with that unit. I think it went through 4 drafts by the time we finished. Me and Richie with Delphine and her unit. And that was also a very interesting process, is to see, well, you just don't take the first draft. You take input, you evolve it. So I would pull them away to the flat I was staying in, and we would be working on rewrites while Hugh was working the sound crew in conjunction with Steve doing the camera crew. So everything came together much quicker than we'd hoped. Again, they had the basic skills, they just really needed to see what the procedure and what the design would be for that. Film is a common language all over the world. It's a very simple language. We all use the same book. All films are approached the same way. So once we understood the process, things really worked. And it happened quick. I mean, within 1 day, we were going by the book, the procedures, the commands, what each crew did, and each unit would work from the script.
It was a little bit of a different experience compared to some other productions which I worked on. You know, the way we work, I'd say, because of the system itself, the difficulties and so on, you find someone working as a, you work as a director, at the same time you work as a producer, at the same time you might work as a location manager and so on. But this time, I had another experience. There was such a kind of, a division of labor which made work or the life during that time to be a little bit easier. You could handle only one portion, which was typically directing. Although in most times, students or the crews, would come around and ask for some assistance. Although this was falling under maybe the art department, you see, but still the people of the art department would call you up and want you to help them and so on. But the good thing is that in most cases, Professor Daniel Boyd came closer to me, and as a producer, he used to remind me that no, this is not your portion. You just leave this to maybe associate producer or so.
The pre-production was a little shaky on this project. Things were not coming together the way I hoped that they would. Again, I knew that we'd have a good training experience. I knew that we'd have a good cultural exchange, which is so very important. I wasn't so convinced that, considering the circumstances, we could come up with a good product. And it really depended on the client believing in us, not knowing us, but believing that we could do this and getting behind us, because if we produced it and they didn't like it, we just would have succeeded in teaching. So I was pretty nervous about it. Luckily, we were able to put all the partners together when we first arrived. They turned out to be great, bright, hip people that were very excited, cautious. I mean, they want their topic, they want their subject represented with integrity and done well. But people that just jumped right in with us and said, okay, how can we help you make this work? So with that, it made our job so much easier. In fact, Taji and Austin with TAC Aids worked directly with us in the script development. And when they came to one of our production meetings to bring the signage, you do on-screen placement in a film like this, just like you do in a narrative film. If you've done a trade for a food or something in doing a narrative feature film, In our case, it was signage that promoted anything that had to do with Ishi. From You Can't Tell by Looking, from Salama condoms, adverts that we would put in the background. Taji and Austin showed up and gave us a good pep talk and talked about the importance and gave us the product and hats and signage and stuff to work into the film. We put them in the film themselves. We said, hey, while you're here, we need some background people here. So in the one bar scene, you can see them. But they were great to work with, and that makes all the difference in the world. It was also nice working with the young kids, seeing how Richie worked. When we went to the school, it was a real public school that was located in the compound of the university. He'd spent a little time with me. This is kind of what the scene's like. This is what I need, and it seemed real. I mean, we were out of school with real school kids. Richie they trust him. They know him. He has a very gentle way of dealing with them. And I noticed it with the main actors, again, how subtle they were and how on the money that they were. Instead of, usually I would be saying, okay, bring it down, bring it down, bring it down. They were almost there from the beginning.
When the producer brought up the idea of, opening with some rotating heads, you see, that really, I couldn't know how we're going to make the heads to rotate, you see. But then it clicked into my mind that we have this potter's wheel, which is out of order, you see. So I said, wait a minute, we can use this, and if somebody sits and if somebody spins it down, I think we'll have this. And we did the experiment, and it worked.
The campus is literally a village. It's a microcosm of African life. There are buildings and traditional scholastic environment. And there's bush, and there's back roads, and there's hard roads, and everything is right there. The Fine Arts Compound, which we called Hollywood, we began calling it when we were there because it's this walled-in structure with a gate that you can come in, and performance areas, studio areas. So one of the things that I taught in my first year there was, guys, use the environments around you. You don't need to go, if you need a border scene, you don't need to go to Kenya to do it. Go up here to this gate and fix it. If you need a bedroom scene, you don't have to go on location. Take this classroom because you're only going to see 2 walls. The cinematography controls the eye of the viewer, and as long as you plan well for that space, you can do it just about anywhere. So we truly made the compound Hollywood on this film. In the dying mother scene, that was the classroom that I taught in there. The grave scene, the burial scene, that was 20 meters out the back door of Hollywood there. The entire movie was shot in the boundaries of the campus.
The art people did a good job, and they made that grave, and it really looked real. And the mother's deathbed scene, that also was something remarkable, because it was a classroom, It was a classroom, but then the art department worked, and they changed the classroom, and it was like a room.
My students who graduated the year I left are doing so well there. Some of them so well that they've come back to work in the department as teachers, instructors, and so forth. And of course, Richie coming on as director with this. And Richie is money. He was the go-to guy that I had. When I had a problem there, when I needed something fixed, when I needed someone to jump in the lab and help Belege, another colleague of ours, with it, he was the guy who could do it. You see the guy that plays Hugo, the sugar daddy, the bad guy in the film. Stephen was one of my best students and great friends there. Grace, who was the co-art director and also played the dying mother, Yusuf's mother in the scene. So it was like a homecoming. And then Mona, who was my graduate student, Mona played the TAC aids teacher and was a production associate on the film itself. And then Hamza, of course, Hugh's partner with this, Muhammad Abdullah, goes by Hamza. he was, again, one of my best students. And I was so happy to see him and involve him. I remember he brought me a note from Dr. Hattar, our department head and my partner there now, saying, can Hamza have permission to join this exercise, this workshop? And my response was, Karibu Sana, very welcome.
I asked for a chance to participate in that workshop, and I got the chance to attend the workshop. In fact, it was interesting.
He did such a good job of we put him in a role of production manager that we needed. That very early on in the process, he was field promoted to associate producer with it. He was doing such a good job with it.
I felt proud. I didn't think that I could be one day a producer of big film like that, but now I'm coming, because from associate producer I'm expecting to be the producer and executive producer in a few days to come.
Another of my former students, Imani Sanga, had been brought back into the department to teach music, and I remembered how talented he was doing original scores for the student films while I was there. So he was our choice to design the score. The music's very important in a film as well. And again, this was a great opportunity for me. I've always enjoyed bringing people together. I think that's why I enjoy producing and directing, is bringing people from different disciplines and different cultures together to work on things. And we brought his initial score back to the U.S., and I was able to bring in some of my favorite colleagues, Michael Lipton and Amin Solomon and Larry Gross, to sort of incorporate their ideas into the score. So we made that as well a truly American Tanzanian collaboration. In fact, Larry wrote the title track for it, and all the rest of the music is based on Imani's initial recordings. My main contact, my main client at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore was Bill Glass. And Bill and I probably talked no more than 5 times, I'd say, no more than 5 times through this whole pre-production process of trying to get information and trying to design this project before I went over. It was always hard for us to catch each other. So we get through this wonderful experience. We're all the way to the end. In fact, it's our closing ceremonies. It's our last day where we all sort of gave our farewells and toasted to our accomplishments. That day I get a call on my cell phone there, and it's Bill Glass. He says, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "Hey, we just finished." He said, "Good, I'm in Dar es Salaam." And I said, "Well, come on over." So I got to literally meet him and introduce him for the first time.
Every minute I was doing the editing, I was really excited, and learning the Premiere was something very good to me, and I really liked it. Getting into such a training is something so precious. The post-production part of training was a great gift to us. Not to me only, but definitely also to my buddies in Tanzania, because they will benefit through this training which I got here. I'm definitely going. If at all we get hold of this program, I'll be the one who is going to teach my fellow Tanzanians how to handle it. In the past, we used to send our programs outside in a foreign country to be edited or to do a commercial. But now, getting to learn this technology, it will help us, to do it there back at home ourselves.
This world needs an opportunity for young people to work together, to join hands, to create together, and then move forward together. It's probably some of these things that are missing, that maybe young people are not working together much enough, from different cultures, from different countries. And when they meet, they have differences rather than creating together and seeing that they're actually just one people. The world is one people. But the fact that we don't get all these opportunities to meet, we don't get a chance to experience these kinds of opportunities.
These kinds of things can show the world positive collaborations. You put people in a room together, and if the differences ever really did occur, they disappear, and people work together. So not only can we hopefully create a product that will help a particular client in our case, but also serve as an example of how we can work together. I mean, we're all not soldiers, we're all not politicians. In our cases, we're filmmakers. So what do? We make film, and after this experience, now there's 23 more filmmakers that will hopefully make a difference in the world. The talent is there. The talent is most definitely there to make great films. The problem is the funding is not there and the resources are not there. And when the funding and resources do come, they usually come with restrictions. Okay, this is what you have to do with this money. This is a story you have to tell. This is how you have to tell it. Well, they can do that, but what you don't see is that they have their own way, and it's a better way to do it. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to take those elements of the African oral tradition and add, again, procedure, add procedural infrastructure to that to make that happen. And I think it's going to be more and more them finding their way in the future, and I'm glad to go along on that trip.
Looking back to the African past, the way people used to communicate, our ancestors, our forefathers, the way they wanted to communicate in the villages, sending out the message. If at all there was something which had happened in that village, they could sound the drum beat, the tom-tom beat. So that could, travel in a distance, and people could understand the message depending on the drum itself, the sound of the drum. Whether this is a wildfire, or there is a wild animal maybe they're hunting, or maybe somebody has lost, or there is an epidemic, or maybe there is war, or maybe a chief is calling for a ceremony, or a king is calling for a meeting or an assembly. People will know that. That was an old or medieval or traditional way of communication. Now, when the TeleDrum project came into being, I felt that, yes, this is communication, and it is communicating from a distance. And so if we sound this drum, the tom-tom should be heard to different cultures, to different lands, way down from the heart of Africa, you see. So in order to tell the students to communicate, I felt that just to tell them, let us sound this drum, let us sound the drum, so that we can be heard to a distance. That means let us communicate.
We did sound the drum, and hopefully it'll get louder and louder.